this is gonna be interesting, to say the least. Are you guys ready for this? Because I don't know if I'm ready for this, but hey, let's go for it. And I already know this video is probably going to be the most disliked video on the channel anyway, so you know what? We're just gonna do it. We are just gonna do it. Here we go. Hey guys, and welcome back to Access Blockbusters, and welcome back to the Star Wars Re-Examined series, where we are watching all 11 live-action Star Wars films, starting from Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and going all the way back till Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, to see how I really feel about these films now, just taking away all the baggage and all of the noise and everything that's been going on in Star Wars movies for the past couple years, and just watching these films on their own to see what I think about them. And as you know, this has been a very gratifying series thus far. I've had pretty much a good experience with almost every single film except for maybe one or two. And even those ones, I've found things to enjoy. So it's been good. It's been really good to revisit Star Wars and re-examine all these films. But as you know, today we are touching upon probably one of the most controversial, if not the most controversial Star Wars film, and one of the most controversial films of the past few years, Star Wars The Last Jedi. And because I know it is so divisive, I'm going to give a lot of disclaimers up front. I'm going to give a lot of context up front, and we're going to do a really deep dive into the story. So this video is going to be probably a little longer than the other ones, but that's okay. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to go through the story. I'm going to go through my thoughts, and I'm going to really try to explain to you what I think about The Last Jedi. Now, here are some disclaimers before we get into The Last Jedi, and these are really, really important, even more so than for the other videos. Number one, and I've said this before in a couple other videos of the Star Wars Re-Examined series, but I want to really emphasize it here. I really do. Everybody has a different Star Wars experience. No two people have the exact same Star Wars experience because no two people are the same. So all of your unique background and upbringings and all of your character traits, your personality, who you are, plus your unique experience with Star Wars when you watch the films for the first time, which characters you grew up loving, which films you saw when you were a kid, which films you saw as an adult, all of that is going to shape how we look at Star Wars differently than the person next to us. And as such, we all have different ideas of these characters. And in this video, we're going to talk a lot about Luke Skywalker. And I just want to say, I've done a lot of thinking about this, a lot of talking about this with other people, and I just want to say, everybody has a slightly, or maybe vastly, but usually slightly different interpretation of who the character of Luke Skywalker ought to be. And I'm just here today, Access Blockbusters, to give you mine. That doesn't mean you have to agree with me. In fact, you probably won't, because everybody, like I said, is different. So with that being said, what I want to emphasize here is please be respectful in the comments, because I am not expecting everybody to agree. I am expecting a lot of discourse and a lot of debate in the comment section down below. But what I will not tolerate on the Access Blockbusters channel is disrespectfulness and harassment. It's Star Wars. It's not the end of the world. It is Star Wars. So let's just all take a breath and relax. If I see toxic behavior, or if I see just outright nonsensical comments that are just attacking people or attacking myself for no good reason and not really trying to engage with other people's conversation, I reserve the right to delete your comment. So please just try to be respectful in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on The Last Jedi. I absolutely would. I don't care if you disagree with me on everything. I'm just glad you're engaging in the conversation and here to listen to my thoughts, and I'm here to listen to yours as well. So with that said, make sure to subscribe, give this video a like, or don't. I mean, I would appreciate a like, but, if you really hate me that much, then I don't know. But please subscribe, support the Access Blockbusters channel. We are just one Star Wars film away from completing all 11 live-action films. I've had such a great time with this series, and I can't wait to finish it out next time and get into all the rankings and tier lists. But for now, again, here we go. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. So we all know the context. Star Wars The Last Jedi came out in 2017. It was directed by Rian Johnson off of the, well, I would say pretty successful Star Wars The Force Awakens. I mean, it grossed over $2 billion. People seem to really like it. And it's only, now after Star Wars Episode 8 and Star Wars Episode 9 that people start looking back at The Force Awakens and going, yeah, maybe there are some problems here and there. But I know a lot of people really still love The Force Awakens. Obviously, if you've seen my video from last time, you'll know that I'm not one of them anymore. I don't hate the movie, but I just don't love it anymore because there's just a lot of setup and not much else. But it was up to the other two films to really deliver on that setup. And I will say that Episode 8 had a lot riding on its shoulders, for sure. There were a lot of questions to be answered, specifically a lot of people's expectations about who Rey's parents were. I mean, that was the big question between 2015 and 2017, Rey's parents. So Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi came out, and surprisingly, I mean, if you look at it now, surprisingly, but, back then it wasn't so surprising, the film has, I believe, still over a 90% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is I think one of the highest ones out of any Star Wars film ever. The critics really liked the film, and at first, it seemed like the fans did as well. But slowly as the months and years went on, this divide began to creep in and crack at the Star Wars fandom, and it just began to split Star Wars into two, and it was really, really disconcerting to see all that happen as the years went on. And a lot of that hinges on the characterization of Luke Skywalker, although there are other things that people really don't like and people really like, but it's really about Luke Skywalker, and so he will be one of the focal points of our discussion today. As for me, when I first saw Star Wars The Last Jedi, I really liked it. I really, really liked it. In fact, I would even say I loved it. And every subsequent rewatch, I have liked the film, not more, but pretty much just as much. It's a reminder to me of why I like the film in the first place. Like every time I see it, I go, yeah, that's why I like this film. But other people don't, and that's okay. I mean, I've had some respectful conversations. I've had some less than respectful conversations with other people, but mostly respectful about what they disagree with me on The Last Jedi, and that's totally okay. But my experience with The Last Jedi has always been pretty positive, so let's get into the rewatch. Let's talk about what I thought about The Last Jedi this time around. Obviously, full spoilers ahead. So The Last Jedi opens with the Resistance on the run. They're basically escaping this planet. And right away, I want to say that, while The Last Jedi has much, much more originality than The Force Awakens, I think even Last Jedi haters can agree with that. Probably they would say to its detriment, but still, a lot of original material here. There are still a number of things that mirror The Empire Strikes Back. I think that Rian Johnson still was trying to pay homage to The Empire Strikes Back. Was it necessary? I don't know. I mean, it's the rebels escaping this space, just like they did on Hoth in Episode 5, like, sure. And going to the end of the film, they're on the run again. It's kind of a gloomy ending with maybe a little bit of hope. That's basically what The Empire Strikes Back was. I know they're sort of broad parallels, but still, you can't help but notice these things. And the First Order is caught up with them, basically, and is now trying to take out their fleet. And the Resistance is very small. What I really like about the beginning of this film is that it establishes the scale. The Resistance is a very small group of ships. It's just a very tiny fleet, and the First Order has this giant ship called a Dreadnought that it's just coming out of hyperspace, like looming like giants. And then Poe Dameron, in his lone X-Wing, goes up to the Dreadnought. Now, this is the first point of contention that I've heard from a lot of people, is the sort of jokey nature, sort of the quippy humor that's more common in Marvel than in Star Wars. That's apparent here. Now, for me, I understand. I understand when I hear Oscar Isaac making jokes about General Hux's mom and other kinds of stuff, and he makes a few other jokes throughout this film that are a little awkward because they're much more close to quote-unquote Earth humor. I also want to point out, though, that the joke in The Force Awakens where he says, who talks first, do you talk first, do I talk first, that also never lands for me, so it's not just in The Last Jedi, it's also in The Force Awakens as well. I think J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson were just trying to characterize Poe too much as this sort of Han Solo-esque character, that they sort of went too far in one direction. So, I mean, yeah, the joke doesn't really land, but it doesn't bother me as much as it does a lot of other people. And then Poe basically directly disobeys Princess Leia's orders and goes after the Dreadnought. And this action scene, I still think is great. I still think that this opening action sequence, the resistance against the Dreadnought, is just fantastic. You get a sense of scale, and you get the sense of excitement, the action, the bombers, and the sense of desperation as Rose's sister, is it Paige? I believe it's Paige, drops the bombs, and it's just this moment of triumph. But Leia's unhappy because you have this conversation between Poe and Leia about what is the cost, right? What is the cost of lives that you paid for going after the Dreadnought? And I think that's a really interesting discussion to have, especially during a kind of war film. And then Finn wakes up and he asks the famous question, "Where's Rey?" And we cut back to Ahch-To, and this is where we get Luke Skywalker. Now, second point of contention: Luke Skywalker throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder. Again, I understand. I get it. I get if it bothers you. I get that it was just too jokey of a moment. It was supposed to be serious. It doesn't bother me as much, though, because this version of Luke Skywalker is so disillusioned, I think, and I understand that while, yes, it was played as a joke, I also think it's consistent with the character that we get. Now, whether or not you like that character is another story, but I think for me, it doesn't bother me because it's consistent. And yeah, I mean, immediately, this version of Luke Skywalker is grumpy. He says, go away all the time. He doesn't want anything to do with Rey. He wants nothing to do with anybody. So before we go any further, let's talk a little bit about Luke Skywalker. Probably a lot, actually. So here's the thing about Luke Skywalker. Here's the argument that I hear a lot of the times from people who say that this isn't the version of Luke Skywalker that I wanted to see. The version of Luke Skywalker that a lot of people wanted to see, and if this is you, I'm not trying to call you out. And if this isn't you, I understand. There are a lot of different perspectives on this, but a lot of people tell me the version of Luke Skywalker they wanted to see is basically the one from Return of the Jedi, the one that is now more of an experienced Jedi. He has the lightsaber skills, he's calm, he's collected, and he's always optimistic, he's always happy, like he always sees the good in people. And I totally understand that. I just finished watching the original trilogy. I know what that Luke is. However, I think it's important to know, and this is what I always say, and if you agree or disagree, it's fine. Doesn't matter. But this is what I think. I mean, it's been 30 years, right? Things happen. People change. And what's really interesting to me is it's not like it's been 30 years and they just don't explain it. Like he's just grumpy for no reason. That I would be very upset at. But throughout this film, Rian Johnson does his absolute best, and to me, to great effect, to explain what got Luke to this point. And that's really, I mean, the central focus, the central emotional crux of this story is Luke's, I guess, regret of how he dealt with Kylo Ren. So you can't say that Rian Johnson just didn't explain what was going on. And the second point I wanted to make about that is that, I mean, again, if you wanted the Luke Skywalker who had the green lightsaber and was just cutting everybody, cutting all the AT-ATs in half and being the Luke Skywalker that remember, that's totally great. That's awesome. I would have loved to see that as well. And honestly, that argument holds a lot more weight if it weren't for one little thing I'd like to call the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. Because the fact of the matter is, and I still maintain, by the way, that the finale of The Last Jedi, the ending of it, is brilliant with Luke Skywalker, and it basically gives you a more fulfilling ending to Luke Skywalker with that lightsaber, quote-unquote lightsaber fight with Kylo Ren than anything else ever would have, but again, I digress. But, I mean, if you are really starved for that Luke Skywalker cutting AT-ATs in half for spectacle, which, I get it, it's cool, but, I mean, just for spectacle, go watch the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. It's there for you. We have both now. We have the progression of Luke Skywalker from a younger age, from the Return of the Jedi, maturing into that experienced Jedi, and now he's on a different path. So, my point has always been, especially after Mando Season 2, we have both now. And as we go along this review, I'll absolutely touch upon sort of the progression of Luke Skywalker's character into Return of the Jedi, Mandalorian Season 2, into what he is now, and why I think that works for me. But just baseline, I wanted to establish that. For me, this character was that version of Luke Skywalker. We get to see it now in Mando Season 2, and then we get to see this new version that I believe the backstory makes sense for, at least in The Last Jedi. Alright, so then we get some more with Snoke and Kylo Ren, and Snoke is an interesting character, but I think that Rian Johnson did a good job in killing him off in this movie. I mean, if we had known at least that Palpatine was going to come back, if we had known that, then yeah, keep him alive. But, like, sure, he's kind of interesting, but also, I think in the vein of he's just sort of an Emperor stand-in, I think this is one of the things where Rian Johnson explicitly really tried to break away from the original trilogy, and I applaud that for this movie, because Snoke at this point, you didn't really have much behind him. And I also really like this Force connection thing, and I think that's one of the things that in Episode 9, J.J. Abrams actually did like from The Last Jedi, because he took that and kept it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that it's really interesting that the fact that Snoke is connecting these two and trying to bait Rey into coming and meeting Kylo Ren, and because she thinks that he can turn. I think all that works really well in this movie, for sure. Jumping back to the Resistance, they jump through lightspeed and find out that the First Order can actually track them through hyperspace, which is terrifying. And you have this really cool space battle where, yeah, Kylo Ren is conflicted because he's broken his mask and now he has to go and basically kill his own mother, which he doesn't, which is interesting. And this is, I guess, point of contention number 3. Am I just going to keep doing this? I don't know. Point of contention number 3, Leia flying back into the ship. Again, I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, aren't I? I get it. It's not the most elegant way to show that Leia has Force powers. I fully admit that. At the same time, it doesn't bother me that much. Like, it's just, for me, this is not so much Rian Johnson inventing a new Force power and saying, this is what all Jedi can do now, fly through space. Like, that's not what I think he was doing necessarily, and that's not the way it came off to me. Rather, I think this was intended just to be a way to show that Leia has the Force and that she is Force sensitive. And yeah, is it kind of random? For sure. But I still think that it works within the context of the scene, that it brings her back into the ship. Now let's talk about this whole subplot here with Poe, Finn, Rose, and Holdo. So basically, the ship is out of fuel. It's out of hyperspace fuel. Well, it's not out of fuel, but basically if they make another jump, then the First Order is just going to follow them and they're going to be out of fuel. So they're kind of just stuck floating just out of range of the First Order. And Holdo is put in charge after Leia is basically in a coma. And Holdo doesn't reveal the plan to Poe. Point of contention number 4. Okay, look. Do I think that Holdo should have revealed her plan to Poe? Her plan being, put everybody else on the transport and use the main carrier cruiser as the decoy, with her likely on board. Do I think that she should have told Poe the plan? Because that's basically the entire crux of that plot, is if she had told him the plan, there really wouldn't be any subplot, I guess. On the one hand, I do think she should have told him the plan because it feels like Poe as a character would have accepted it. But on the other hand, I also can kind of understand why she didn't, because what Leia saw out of him, and this is what the entire first third of the movie was trying to set up, is that Poe is reckless, and while he goes, his heart is in the right place, and he goes for the kill, so to speak, when he sees the chance. Leia also understands that he's rash and reckless and careless, and he doesn't take other people's lives into account. And from General Holdo's perspective, while I think she comes off as a little arrogant and snide to Poe at the beginning, I do think that there is justification from her perspective in saying, this guy just got a bunch of people killed, disobeyed Leia's orders, and is now asking me to be a part of the plan. No thank you, I don't want any part of that. Is that a mistake on her part? I think so, but I don't think it's a mistake necessarily from the writer's perspective. I think rather it's more of a character flaw. So, I mean, this one is a little bit more of, I get it, but also I kind of disagree. I think that this one makes a little bit more sense to me. So this leads to the whole subplot of Kelly Marie Tran's Rose and Finn and Poe basically trying to find this code breaker where they can get on the Star Destroyer and shut off the hyperspace tracking. And let's talk about the character of Rose for just a second. Now, I'm not going to call this point of contention number 5 because Kelly Marie Tran has been through more than enough. And honestly, I don't hate the character of Rose as much as a lot of other people. And again, this is another friendly reminder. I feel like I've had to say this in so many videos over the last year, and I hate it. But just because a person is a certain ethnicity or a certain gender or a certain race is not an excuse to judge them in any way. That is absolutely terrible. It is absolutely toxic. And I am so sad by the amount of hate that Kelly Marie Tran got from The Last Jedi. That is unacceptable. Does that mean I like the character? Just putting all of that aside, all the context and backdrop and all of the hate and all that terrible stuff that happened, does that mean I like the character of Rose? Not necessarily. I don't think she's the strongest character in this film. But none of that is Kelly Marie Tran's fault. I think that she gave the performance her all. So she and Finn go off to Canto Bight, and we'll get back to Canto Bight. But first, let's get back to Ahch-To, where we have Rey and Luke, and they're going through training. And this stuff, well, I mean, first of all, Luke is convinced basically to train Rey because R2-D2 shows him the recording of Leia, and I love that. I mean, that scene, it's one of the greatest, I think, in the movie because it kind of shows that heart he still has within him. Like the Luke Skywalker from the original trilogy, it's still him, for sure. So he goes to train Rey, and I think that the lessons he gives her about the Force and about how it's this energy that binds all the balance of the good and the evil together, and it's within every single living being. I love that kind of stuff. I love that he's taking on the Obi-Wan Yoda role in this movie. Begrudgingly, of course. And I think, we still have Rey and Kylo Ren Force FaceTiming or Skyping or whatever, and we get our first flashback here of the whole Jedi Temple burning scene. And I think that this is really good. So again, you get 3 sets of flashbacks. I believe the first one, I might have flipped for 1 and 2, but the first one I think is from Kylo Ren's perspective where he sees Luke Skywalker. He wakes up and sees Luke Skywalker holding a lightsaber over him, about to kill him, and he basically thinks he's acting in self-defense. So there's the first one. The second one is Luke's perspective where he basically says, I saw this darkness in Kylo Ren and I was defending myself, and that's why I have the lightsaber out, because Kylo Ren basically attacked me first. And the real version of the story is that Luke sensed the darkness in him, and he called it instinct, a moment of instinct, where he turned on the lightsaber because he thought he could end this darkness. And then he said, I felt great shame when I realized what I was doing. But it was too late. It was a mistake. And Kylo Ren saw the lightsaber and burned the whole thing down. I think that just shows a really flawed character in a really good way. Like, it was this mistake that made him realize that I cannot prevent this darkness from spreading. And not only can I not prevent this darkness, but I am actually only, in fact, encouraging it to spread. And that's why I have to remove myself from the picture. To me, it makes sense. Now, Canto Bight. And I'm going to spend probably the least amount of time in this already super long review on Canto Bight, because for as much as I do enjoy The Last Jedi, Canto Bight just doesn't work. It never works for me whenever I see this film, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think it just feels too much like actual Las Vegas or something. Like, it doesn't quite feel like Star Wars, and it feels like this really unnecessary kind of subplot within this film. And I have to say, I know Benicio del Toro is a world-class actor. I hate his performance. It was a deliberate choice to have the stutter, and I really can't stand that. So, I mean, there's a lot of interesting themes here about, I guess, class and about rich, wealthy people in the galaxy and about whose side are you on and stuff like that. But, Canto Bight just doesn't work for me. If I could just cut out Canto Bight entirely, I think The Last Jedi might even be elevated even further. That's all I'm saying. So back on Ahch-To, Rey basically has her Force vision. I guess this is the equivalent of Luke's cave vision. And I think this is also really interesting, the mirror scene. It's kind of trippy. And what I imagine that it is, and what I've read a lot of people saying it is, basically her looking into the mirror and asking for her parents and realizing it's just her, and kind of understanding the fact that she's relying too much on the past, that it's time to let go of the past, like Kylo Ren says, but in a good way, and saying, move on. You know, your identity is not really within the parents. And I think that's a very meta thing to say here in The Last Jedi, when everyone was expecting her parents to be someone famous or someone in the Star Wars canon. And that's when she decides to leave. And again, another parallel here to Luke leaving prematurely and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there absolutely are some Empire parallels here for sure. But before I get to any of that, and before I get to everything else coming together into the last act, which I think is really great, I have to talk about the Yoda scene. If any of you legitimately think this is a bad scene, please comment below. Like, actually, please comment below, because I'd love to hear your thoughts, genuinely. Because I watched this scene in The Last Jedi, and I watch the scene on YouTube every once in a while. I believe this scene is one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars. Everything that Yoda says to Luke is Yoda. It is so Yoda, and it is so wise, and it's funny, but also smart, and just being a master is what they grow beyond, or something like that. I completely butchered that line, but it is just so magnificent to me. And that shot where they're looking at the burning tree, I could have it as a poster hanging on my wall. And this is when the film begins to really merge together. So now Rey is on the Star Destroyer, and so are Finn and Rose, basically. And there's a fun scene where Rey is going up the elevator to meet Snoke, and Rose and Finn are on the Star Destroyer, which is pretty cool. And the fleet are running away. Basically, Holdo is putting everybody on the transports to run away, so Poe thinks. But in reality, she's going to be piloting the cruiser and distracting the First Order. The Rose and Finn stuff, I mean, DJ betraying them, who would have seen that coming? I'm not going to talk about that too much. This video is already way too long. But fine, whatever. Finn kills Phasma again, whatever. But the Rey, Snoke, Kylo Ren scene, I think, is also one of the greats in this movie, and maybe in all of Star Wars, maybe. I think that the reveal that Snoke dies, and the way that he dies, when I saw it in the theater, and I know a lot of people caught the way that Kylo Ren's hand was moving to move the lightsaber. I didn't catch it the first time, so when Snoke died, I was shocked. But it's one of those things that I go, yeah, no, actually, that makes a lot of sense. And then the ensuing duel with the Praetorian Guards, Kylo Ren and Rey, is one of the best duels I think I've seen in all of Star Wars. Now, we can talk about Kylo Ren revealing Rey's parentage here, and obviously how it was retconned in The Rise of Skywalker that, oh no, they were nobodies because they chose to be. Okay, come on. A lot of people kind of saw this as Rian Johnson kind of giving the middle finger to all the fans and saying, look, you thought it was somebody important, but it wasn't. And maybe there was some of that in there, but I think really more than anything else, it was just a subversion of expectations in a sense of, and it was set up earlier too by the mirror scene, by the way, but that we don't need to be focusing on who her past is anymore. Like, she is powerful because the Force chose her. And I think Snoke even said that. Darkness rises, the light to meet it. The Force chose somebody. And I mean, up until this point, we're not going to talk about The Rise of Skywalker here. We're going to talk about The Rise of Skywalker next time. But up until this point, I think that there are some things where you kind of go, how does she just know how to do that without training? But other things I think you can go, yeah, no, the Force chose her, basically, to be the light equivalent to the darkness that was rising. And then we have the Holdo maneuver. And again, one of the most gorgeous, if not top 5 most gorgeous scenes in all of Star Wars. I love it. I love watching the scene unfold where there's no sound, and it is artwork. It is pure artwork. I love this shot so much. And now everything converges on Crait. So they go to the old Rebel base. They're trying to take out that big cannon, basically. And I mean, the Finn sacrifice, I think that Finn, I don't know. I'm of two minds of this, because I don't think that Rose should have been the one to save Finn. And honestly, I don't think that Rose should have kissed Finn either. I think it's clear after watching Force Awakens and Last Jedi back to back that it was meant to be Finn and Rey together, but I could be wrong. So Rose, I don't know, being a part of this love story, if it even was supposed to be a love story triangle, maybe felt a little off. And on the one hand, I think, though, that Finn maybe should have sacrificed himself because it was a very noble thing to do, kind of completing the mini arc of him being a former stormtrooper. But also, it feels like there's just a lot more to be done with the character of Finn, so a little iffy on that. And then Projection Luke Skywalker shows up. And to me, I'm not going to say too much about this because this video is already crazy long. I've said that 3 or 4 times already. But this, to me, is the completion of Luke's arc in this movie. It's almost a redemption arc for Luke in a different way, not going from dark side to light side, but a redemption arc for Luke within this movie that I feel really truly brings his character full circle into that Obi-Wan role, because it really reminds you of that Obi-Wan role in episode 4, but not in a way that's blatantly copying like a lot of The Force Awakens is for episode 4. It's that moment where Obi-Wan is fighting Darth Vader, but he's not fighting him to win. He understands that he is just there to buy time for others to escape, and that is the true wisdom as a Jedi Master that I think Luke has reached at this point. And I love that Kylo Ren is so upset to see Luke again, that he has just focused all his attention on him. It makes sense. The Resistance escapes, and they live to see another day. I don't think I missed anything, did I? I mean, this video is almost 30 minutes long. Oh, porgs. Yeah, they're cute, I guess. Let me insert a picture here for myself to edit in later. Great, another 5 seconds to edit. And guys, that is it. Thank you guys so much for sticking around if you're still here to my review / re-examination / rewatch of The Last Jedi. Now, like I said at the beginning, I know not everyone, in fact, almost no one is going to agree with me here. I usually talk about how my opinion has changed from the last time I seen the film, and to be quite honest with you, I'm not going to dwell on it too much because I might even like The Last Jedi a little bit more this time around. But I know a lot of you guys don't. And so I want to throw it out to you guys this time because I've been talking long enough and I want to hear your guys' thoughts. So again, please make sure to be respectful in the comments down below. I understand this is a long video, and this is really purely me trying to give my thoughts and explanations on how I feel about Star Wars The Last Jedi. You do not have to agree. You will not agree. Please be respectful. I'd love to have a discourse and a debate and a discussion with you in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. We have one more film to go before all of the rankings, tier lists, and all the other fun video essays that are coming up. So make sure to subscribe, give this video a like, and check out the other content on my channel. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.